Hello, beautiful people. This is Elena and Danielle coming into your airwaves again. We are continuing our mini series, the 3-day challenge to help you boost your immune system in a time of struggle that we have as a global community right now with coronavirus. Yesterday, as we went live, Danielle and I talked about the first and one of the most important things that we need to address, and that is to regulate stressors in our life so that our immune system can go from fight and flight to being relaxed and focusing what's at hand, and that is running your body like it's nobody's business, like it's supposed to be running. But that is only the foundation of things. We talked yesterday about how to really identify the stressors. Danielle gave us tools on how to create gatekeepers to what is going in us. And then we talked about a quick breathing exercise that will downregulate your nervous system, and then going into the process of identifying where you want to be, how you want to be, and bringing the stress level down. Today, we're going to take it a step further because reducing stress is only a piece of the protocol that we use with our clients, who most of them have autoimmune conditions. And we use this process to bring the inflammation levels down, because we all know if the inflammation levels are up, your immune system is even more stressed and taxed, and it's working too hard in order to protect itself. And then it's even more confused with that. So today we're going to talk about a healing diet, and a diet that is going to boost the immune system. And it is going to give us all the tools necessary to bring the inflammation down, to also allow us to absorb nutrients and minerals that are supposed to be coming from food. So before we jump into that, I wanted to bring Danielle in just to say hello to all of you. Then I'm going to cover a point, and then we'll hand over to Danielle like we did yesterday, and we're going to go back and forth. So Danielle, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here for night number 2.
Night number 2 is in full force. By the way, those of you who are tuning in for the second time, don't forget that tomorrow we're going to go live, and it will be at 10 o'clock Central Time. So that is 8 in the morning for Pacific people and 11 in the morning for Eastern Standard Time people. We want to make sure that we keep giving you the tools that you need where you are, when you are. So today, here's what I want us to do. We're going to talk on 3 things. We're going to talk about the diets not to, which I will take over. Then Danielle is going to jump in, and she's going to talk about what to do and why it is great for us. And then we're going to actually show you practical things and give you practical tools on how to shop for the kind of diet that we're going to cover today. So a lot of you who have autoimmune conditions or just thyroid conditions and hormone imbalances or digestive disorders, you've heard a myth that a high protein diet is the king. This is how we're supposed to heal ourselves. But unfortunately, nothing can be further from the truth. Now, what was it, a year, 2 years ago, when the keto diet is especially in the last 12 months, was starting to come to the forefront, where high fat diet is supposed to be healing. Again, nothing can be further from the truth. And those are the 2 things I will talk about right now to dispel the myth, and then Danielle will tell you about the diet that we're actually supposed to be consuming. So first of all, let's take an approach to a high protein diet. And I think it's a misnomer in many ways, Danielle, that we are talking about high protein, but many of us don't even know what protein is. This is one of the things I actually taught my husband this trick, because he's a big guy, and a lot of times guys are like, well, where do you get your protein to keep all that muscle on? And he got tired of always answering that question. Now he does something really smart, and he says, well, if you can tell me what protein is, I will tell you where I get it from. And most people just don't. They go immediately, well, isn't it meat? And yeah, meat is one of the protein sources, but it's actually not high quality protein source. Protein comes from a Greek word, proteos. I think that's how we pronounce it, but it just means important. And so right around World War II time, there was this misconception, actually maybe a little earlier. I can't remember the date. But there was a guy that decided that our protein molecules are very similar to animal protein molecules. So it's supposed to be then the animal protein is great for us. What he didn't look at is how animals get their protein, and we're a form of an animal, how we're supposed to be getting our protein. Most of the animals that at least the American society is consuming is herbivores. That means they're eating plants. So if you look at cows, if you look at pigs, yeah, and chicken, and yes, some of the animals, if you give them whatever, they will eat whatever. So I'm not going to argue with that. Fish, They eat each other. Some of them don't, some of them do. That's not an argument though. But if we look at biggest mammals out there, we're going to look at an elephant and a hippo and who else shall we look at? Cows. They get their protein from plant sources, and none of them are running around saying, we're lacking protein. I know I'm putting this in humorous terms, but just imagine if a cow was supposed to go slay another cow just to eat to get its protein, because cows are big, they need a lot of protein, but we really don't need that much protein. Protein is only one of the macronutrients. There are 3 macronutrients. There's protein, there's carbohydrates, and there is fat. So I'm going to focus on the protein and the fat. Danielle will cover the carbs. But when we come to understanding of how much we really need, they actually work in conjunction. I don't think there's ever such a thing as a fat-free diet, because even corn has fat in it, even peas have fat in it. So fat, protein, and carbs are found in every plant food that you will find. Now, when it comes to animal foods, such as meat, protein is not the only thing that you're getting from them. You're getting a lot of fat sources, and you're getting a lot of other things that we don't identify as humans because nobody's asking us, but minerals, nutrients, they're secondhand. World Health Organization, just until recently is about 2 decades ago, maybe, or 15 years ago, was recommending that our diet should be comprised of only about 5% maximum protein, and then the rest should be split between carbohydrates and fat. Now, to put into perspective what 5% looks like, it's only about 100 calories a day. I can tell you just a little bowl of beans can fulfill that for you. And there was a misnomer that protein coming from animal sources is the perfect protein because it has all the amino acids, and plants are somehow lacking. Well, we don't really need protein to come from, or amino acids to come from the same source. By eating varied plants, we're going to get all the amino acids. But now even that myth has been misspelled. We can find all of the essential amino acids in every plant foods. However, they're in different ratios and proportions. At the end of the day, we don't need to chase and say, oh, we need this amino acid or that amino acid. As long as we're consuming, let's call it the rainbow of plants that Danielle will cover, we're going to get everything that we need. And then the body, what amazing part about it is going to take all of those amino acids and it's going to combine them in the protein combinations that I, Elena, need, or she, Danielle, or Beth or Bob or whoever else. We are going through combining thousands of different protein combinations per day. It depends on our gender, on our age, and activity level, whether we need to grow hair or whether we need to ovulate, whatever it is. So there's not a protein. There are hundreds of thousands of combinations of proteins, and the way we do them is by getting them from amino acids. Danielle, did you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I mean, in my exploration of diets over the years, I've tried probably every diet. And, I've tried paleo, I've tried keto, I've tried raw. And I believe some of those myths as well before, Elena. I mean, I used to hear the questions, where do you get your protein? Or if I had a tired day, one of my family members would say, well, where are you getting your protein? Maybe you don't get enough. And so I really had to do my research, and, becoming a health coach and also going through the 360 program myself, I really learned, what a healthy diet truly is, what a well-rounded diet for the general population truly looks like. And it's simple. It's vegetables, all colors of vegetables. It's fruit, it's grains, it's legumes, and it's small sources of nuts and seeds. And the body has receptors and is able to recognize, the nutrients that come from all those different foods. And so that is the diet, that is the meal plan, the nutrition plan that we recommend at 360. And whether you're going through the COVID pandemic and you have high stress or not, this is the meal plan that truly is the source of the most rich nutrients and minerals that your body will need to survive and to function and thrive.
Yeah, and it is just the beginning of that, right? And we're going to get into specific recommendations you're starting on right now. However, one of the things we also need to understand, why is it that we're saying, why shouldn't we go like paleo or high protein diet? And this is where we can lead to, but you had an autoimmune condition I was developing. I didn't fully get there. I nipped mine in the bud. But what we find is that animal protein, so animal foods generally, they're very much acid forming. And this is what it means for you. Our body has to keep a certain pH level. And if it doesn't, it's going to struggle. If you have too much of an alkalinity in your body, so those of you who are going for alkaline water, please beware. It's not great for you. And if there's too much acidity, acid forming diet, so we're not talking about tomatoes, they taste acidic, but when they go in the body, they're actually alkaline forming. Whereas with animal products and processed foods such as sugars and caffeine and alcohol, sorry to disappoint all of you addicts out there, it's actually acid forming. And that means your body's pH level goes down, but your body will do whatever it takes in order for it to survive. And that means it needs to buffer that acidity. The best mineral to buffer acidity is calcium, which is found in your bones. So your body, which is wondrously made, it goes and it takes calcium from the bones. It buffers the acidity that comes from your junk food and the animal food. And then it says, oh, but now it's a used byproduct. I cannot reabsorb it, so I'm going to dump it. So it dumps it through urine. So we have a lot of bone diseases coming from this. So to have stronger bones, we actually don't need more calcium from supplements or from cow milk. We actually need less acidity and more the kind of foods that Danielle will describe here shortly in detail that will give us the calcium that we need. And just be mindful, just to sidetrack here for a moment, is that the bones are not just made of calcium. They're made of other minerals as well. If it was pure calcium, to think about chalk. You take it, it's very brittle, you snap it into two, you're done. That's what your bones would look like. So don't think I need healthy bones, I need calcium. You also need magnesium, you need manganese, you need other things. So don't hyper focus on it. Now back to autoimmune conditions. The dairy is one of the big offenders for the immune system because it is acid forming. It is going to be very taxing on your body, and it also is mucus forming. And it's also created with a lot of hormones that are meant for cows to grow their babies. So your body and your hormone system is overloaded because your body has to figure out what to do with that hormonal overload. And when it can't, your immune system is quite shocked. It goes into a stress mode. So yesterday we talked about emotional stressors. This way we are going into a dietary stress. And you're going right back into fight or flight, fight or flight, or freeze mode. But you're also overtaxing your digestive tract. Your body cannot really well process acid-forming foods in the digestive tract, so you start depleting some of the very essential ingredients in your stomach, namely your microbiome, which is, in other words, your gut bacteria. So for those reasons, not really optimal to eat too much protein. And even if we were to think, oh my God, I need more protein because I'm pregnant or lactating, I'm working out. World Health Organization, once they were pressured and they were lobbied, they said, okay, let's bump it up from between 2.5% to 5% to 5 to 7.5%. That is still only about 150 calories from protein per day. And those are very easy to get. Danielle will cover that. Now, Danielle, you mentioned the keto diet. So I'm going to take about 3 minutes to touch on that, why that is not great. We all have heard, especially those of you who are dieting a lot, eat more fat is going to help you lose weight. It doesn't. I mean, it's a great idea to think about this, and all of us love to hear great news about our bad habits, don't we? If we already love eating fatty foods, I mean, who doesn't? Beautiful round molecules jumping around on your tongue and making you feel like, oh my God, this is the top of the world, right? It's fantastic, but it's not great for your arteries. The keto diet was developed for epileptic children who were not responding to medication, and their parents had to choose between their children dying from a severe epileptic seizure, if I can spit it out today, or them dying. So they would put them on the high-fat diet, which basically it would line their stomach with fat, and the transmission between nerves would be, how to say it in the words that would make sense to me. But it will allow for the nervous system not to overfire. That's what happens with seizures, right? There's too much going on. There's crossing of wires. This prevents it. And the parents had to choose between the two. Now, the science and the research showed that usually within 4 to 6 weeks, this kid's coronary arteries, so arteries altogether, their coronary health, was already compromised. The cholesterol levels are going up, the plaque is building up, and the parents had to choose something, but they could not maintain that kind of diet for a long time. Athletes were placed on those kind of diets, and their performance usually went down within about a month time. So we know it is not optimal. We know that it is dangerous. And now there is an invention of, it's kind of like a probiotic that will do the kind of work that a high-fat diet does in the gut for those kind of children. So it's in the development now. So soon they will be able to take a pill, instead of compromising their cardiovascular health, they will be able to just take the pill and stop the progression of the severe seizures. Long term, we have had a lot of clients like Danielle who have had paleo diets and keto diets before, and none of them are coming out winners. And when you are having already health issues, whether they're going to be coronary issues or autoimmune conditions or others. Right now, when we're seeing, Danielle, the amount and the number of deaths that are happening, they usually happen in people who are immunocompromised. It doesn't mean that you need to have a full-blown autoimmune condition. It means that if you are not healthy and you have pre-existing health conditions, you're more likely to succumb to having this virus. So with that said, there's a lot more science to dive into. I will not do it in this training. I have separate trainings on the keto diet and the paleo diet. If you're interested, drop a note right under this video or email us at info@360impactcoaching.com. We will send it your way. But right now, just sufficient to say that we have a very high success rate with our clients. It's anywhere between 95, 99, sometimes to 100%. That means if you do your work, you're going to get better. And we do it based on this diet. We work on stressors, we work on deficiencies, work on other things, but a diet that is healthy, that because we consume food 3 to 4, 5, 6 times a day. It depends on who is eating, right? It is something that fundamentally is important. So for us, we're able to help women reverse hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, autoimmune conditions of different kinds. There are 60 known autoimmune conditions, so I'm not going to list all of them here. Infertility, endometriosis, PCOS, and there is science after science. We have training in all of that. But sufficient to say, we find that the diets that I just described, they're not optimal for immune system building. They're actually counterproductive. Right now, I'm going to hand it off to Danielle so she can actually take and break it down as to why we need a high carb diet, because I just covered that we need only about maximum 5% of protein. Then through research and science, what we have seen, especially the nurses study, that we need only about 15% or less of our dietary sources to come from fat sources. That's a combination of 20%, which leaves us with up to 80% plus of carb sources that we need. So Danielle, if you can, please take it away.
Absolutely. So the word carb to some people has a positive meaning, and for some people it has a negative meaning, right? I've heard lots of people say, oh, I'm not eating carbs now. And I think what they mean is they're not eating simple carbs, right? They're not eating the sugars and the processed flours. But a high carbohydrate diet within the context of a whole food plant-based diet means that you're consuming food that's well-rounded, that contains complex carbohydrates that take a longer time to break down, but they also contain amino acids and fat and minerals and all these different things that you need. So you can't go into nature and say, let me see if I can find some calcium. Let me see if I can find some vitamin B2. No, there are foods that contain many different nutrients and cofactors, and the body knows how to break those things down. So it's important to understand that when we're talking about a high carbohydrate diet, we're not talking about simple carbs. We're talking about well-rounded foods, vegetables, fruit, legumes, grains that you can digest, and small amounts of nuts and seeds that are not cooked in oil, that contain nutrients and cofactors that are beneficial for your body, that will fuel your body and help all of your different organs to function, optimally. So when I first started the program, and when some other people have started the program, there are some cases where people have to take their time and build up, right, and eat certain things in the beginning and then add certain foods later. There are different combinations and different troubleshooting conversations that we have to help people through this process. But the universal diet, when you look at the globe and you look at the benefits and the longevity, look at the people in Okinawa and people who live for many, many years to 100, 110, 115 years old, this is the meal plan that is the most beneficial. And so I have personally benefited from it. I know that many of our clients have benefited from it and have agreed that when they are on this meal plan, I try to stay away from using the word diet too much, but when they're on this meal plan, this nutrition plan, they recognize how their bodies respond, how their energy is different, how their mind is different, and how their bodies start to repair from damage from the past. Now, if you're watching the video today and you hear about this diet, you might be thinking, well, what are, you know, am I going to get nutritional deficiencies from eating a diet like this? If I'm not eating, you know, dairy, if I'm not eating cheese or eggs, will I get nutritional deficiencies? And that's a really common question. And I think if you were to look at the profile of the foods within the spectrum of foods that I just mentioned, you would be pleasantly surprised to see the rich abundance of nutrients. You know, just thinking about chard and the amount of vitamin A and K and magnesium and, you know, all these different nutrients inside of this one food. That's just one example. But if you add spinach and apples and peppers, they all have their own nutritional profiles that are more superior than supplements that your body has to try to break down and understand and decompose. So in a diet or a meal plan like this, eating a well-rounded whole food plant-based diet, you will get the nutrients that you need for your body to function optimally. There are a couple of vitamins that you may need more of based on your certain circumstances, such as, you know, B12, right? That's one that comes up. And so I have folks who eat, you know, nutritional yeast, or maybe when they consume 1 or 2 small portions of animal-based protein a week, maybe they get it from that. But when they're following this anti-inflammatory meal plan and other lifestyle recommendations and strategies, their bodies are able to thrive and they're set up for success. One of the things that you may also be thinking is, you may ask the question about gluten. You know, I talked about grains. There's lots of different types of grains. And so if you're celiac, or if you have a gluten sensitivity or a severe autoimmune condition, yes, that may be something that you want to avoid. But there are grains that are easier to break down. You know, when you soak them, when you cook them the proper ways, there are ways that you can get that food into your diet without having digestive issues or discomfort. So, you know, I was thinking about this meal plan and how beneficial it's been for our clients. And it made me think about a story that you may not know about, you may know about. There's a well-known medical expert. He's an MD. His name is Dr. Esselstyn. And he has studied cardiovascular health for many years. And one of the, you know, interesting stories that he shared is that looking at the time of World War II, and when the Nazi Germans, you know, occupied certain countries, one of the decisions they made was to remove the animal livestock from those countries. And so when that happened, the people who were there were left with what? Grains, vegetables, fruit, the things that we just talked about. And they started to track the changes in cardiovascular health during that time. And even though there was high stress, right, there was a Holocaust and all these horrible things going on, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, these people, and the statistics show that the number of heart attacks and strokes plummeted during this time when the animal-based products were removed. So it just goes to show you that when we're talking about boosting the immune system, we're trying to set you up for success so that you can have, even in a moment of stress and anxiety with COVID-19, that your body can have the support that it needs to handle the stress, to get rid of it, and to support the normal functioning of your body. So one of the things that I like to also talk about with diet is, it's not just about what you eat. It's also about why you eat, and how you eat, and when you eat. If I speak with someone who's on a whole food plant-based diet and they have this attitude where they think that they are missing out on something, they feel like they are being limited, restricted, they're missing their ice cream, they're missing their steak, what do you think happens to the body with that type of attitude? Those stress hormones create inflammation in the body. So if someone says, you know, look at the wide spectrum of food I get to eat, all these vegetables I really didn't know existed. Look at all these cool recipes. I just got a new cookbook. I got Forks Over Knives, or I got Happy Pair, or I got some of the 360 Impact recipes. And they get excited about it. The body is able to then absorb all those amazing nutrients and give you the support that you need. So thinking about the mindset when you embrace a whole food plant-based diet, it's very important. Also, are you chewing your food well? Make sure that you're chewing your food well, because once you chew and when you smell your food, enzymes are created in your body that get ready for that food to come in, and they're able to digest it a lot better. So again, what you eat's important, Why you eat is important, how you eat is important, and how you prepare your food. You know, should you eat raw? Should you eat steamed food? Should you eat baked food? Yes, yes, yes. There are nutrients that are available within all of those forms, and we can help you troubleshoot, you know, the perfect combination for you based on your circumstance to help you to digest the nutrients that you need. Couple more points on the optimal nutrition plan. I can't talk about nutrition without talking about hydration. When you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you are consuming more fiber than you probably ever have before. And that can be a good thing because fiber binds with toxins and things that your body needs to get rid of. So how do you get that out of your body? How do you get those toxins out of your body? You need hydration. You need good, clean water. I love spring water. There's lots of different options out there. I know that we have not encouraged reverse osmosis water, but you know, spring water is a great source. But I consume, you know, probably 3/4 of my weight in ounces every day because I need to flush the fiber and everything that my body is trying to get rid of, all of that waste, through my system to support my energy and to support the functioning of my body. So if you don't drink a lot of water or you don't like to consume a lot of water, think about what you can do creatively to consume more fluids. Maybe you like hot tea. Maybe you want to add some berries to your water, or maybe add some lemons or some oranges or some cucumber. Get creative with that. But hydration is so important when you eat a whole food plant-based diet to really support things moving the way they need to be moved. And the last thing I was going to say is sunshine. So sunshine is not in the food category, but it is in the nutrient category because vitamin D and all of its forms come from the sun. And getting outside right now, even though we're social distancing, getting outside for 20 minutes a day, allowing the sun to hit your bare skin is a wonderful way for your body to consume that and to convert it into the vitamin D that your body needs, that your immune system needs for, you know, supporting you through this time.
And those are fantastic points that you made. And I want to loop on some of them because I was like, I'm having aha moments. I've done this lifestyle for over a decade. I'm like, oh my God, aha moments. What a great thing to bring up history, World War II, right? You mentioned some cardiovascular issues, the issues and other things, but the number of cancer cases plummeted during World War II. So as the German army was moving through Europe and other countries and was eating up all the livestock, the numbers statistically are showing that the number of cancer cases and infertility cases, even you think that we're starving and cannot get pregnant, but that was not so. Cardiovascular issues was plummeting down. And it took almost a decade after the war was over for people to catch up to the same level of wealth so that they could spend that extra money on animal foods again before the curve started to go. So it's kind of like with coronavirus right now. The curve was going up, World War II happens, it plummets down, and then as wealth increases, so does the curve goes up with cancer cases and infertility and autoimmune conditions in European countries. So it was not because they were consuming Mediterranean diet, it was because they were broke and they were eating plants. My mother, my father, they went through World War II. And the stories that I've heard where people were literally eating greens. And they were eating leaves or rotten potatoes because they were trying to hide it from Germans. And so needless to say, when I was introducing plant-based diet to my family, my mother said, I ate enough of grass in my lifetime. I don't want to eat anymore. But it goes to show, though, that it allowed people to survive through the harshest of times. In the ghettos that were built for Jews, where they were locked away, they were given rations. Tiny rations of food, and a lot of it was basically bread and water. And amazingly, women still were able to conceive and have healthy pregnancies and carry babies to term on that. So we see that, you know, it's not optimal, but the fasting kind of even mechanism kicks in and your body is still able to utilize so much of what is in your system already. But it is, we are sometimes, I think, overthinking and go, oh my God, plant-based, what do I eat? You know, what do you all eat? But if we look, Danielle, on an average American family, people rotate through between 5 to 10 recipes. That's all they can make. Like the variety is not big. And most of those recipes include meat and dairy products, which really, it reduces the variety. And in a variety is where we see abundance. So if any of you, like Danielle, it was, I think, beginning of this year or end of last year, when you posted a picture and you had a cupboard full of supplements, you were getting rid of 70. I mean, we're all guilty. you read an article, vitamin D is great for you, or K or A, before you know, you have a mini pharmacy and you don't know why you're taking it. And then we go, the soil is depleted, we need them. Well, if the soil is depleted, then those vitamins come from a depleted soil, so what's the point? But in reality, the soil is not as depleted as we think, and there is a plethora and combination of these vitamins and nutrients in our food that if you take it as an extracted supplement, the body does not know what to do with it, especially if there's an autoimmune condition, especially if there's a digestive disorder. But if you eat that, I think you talked about spinach, right? If you eat a leaf of spinach, all of a sudden there's a K and there's a and there's a C, and all those vitamins and minerals and nutrients, including carbs and proteins and fats that come in that category. And your body goes, oh, I know what to do with this stuff. I just didn't know what to do with that extracted crab that was filled with binders and whatever else, shelf life preservatives. Our bodies don't know what to do with it. And like you said, there are times when some of our clients need, I don't think I've rarely seen a client that we needed more than about 3 supplements. Temporary. B12, yes, we take it, but it's only because of farming practices, not because we really couldn't get it. But the big point here is to really understand that when it comes to vitamin D, some people say, we eat animals because of vitamin D. Where do they get their vitamin D? Sunshine, right? We eat animals because of B12. Where do they get B12? Is by grazing on the grass and absorbing some of that bacteria that comes from the ground. It ends up in their gut, and their gut then produces B12. So it's not there magically like a pill is coming out of a bottle. The animal comes out and says, I'm full of vitamin D and B12. So we really are going to byproducts really here at this point. The animal consumed it, processed it, and now we're going to the animal for the source, but it's always better to go for the source. So the things that you discussed, Danielle, if we can put it into categories for people, the 4 I actually like to call them 5 groups that we really love is, so ladies, please take notes on this: fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, and greens. I know that greens are, strategically they're a vegetable kind of, but I like them in their own category because they have so many nutrients in them. And then clean water, and then sunshine and B12. For most of us, this is what we need. Now, for some of you with compromised immune systems, there might be exceptions, like Danielle said. We normally, when we work with our clients, we go on case-by-case basis, as opposed to saying, woe to all of us, we can never eat bread again. Some of us can, some of us can't. And so we don't like generalizing, because I think the more extreme we go sometimes with things, the less likely people are going to do the lifestyle. So we don't like to do that. So what we would invite you to do right now is take the notes on what we said, be open-minded. If you need deeper research, more than we can give you in 30 minutes, email us. We'll give you more information on the things and the topics we already covered that we go deeper on. In the meantime, Danielle and I are going to share some pointers with you all on how to shop for this kind of diet. Now, Danielle, I don't know about you, but I think when did this whole craziness roll out? 2-3 weeks ago, I think now, when everybody's like, lockdown, toilet paper disappearing. I was like, well, I'm fine. I have a whole bag of them. And then after that, people are like, food. And then we see these pictures where all the shelves that were filled with animal products and processed foods, they were cleaned out first. And Dimitri and I, my husband and I, were giggling at one point. We're like, we're good. Like, we're going to live through this coronavirus just fine, because we never even go to those sections. And I think it was during the second week when people are like, okay, we're running out of the cows and the chickens and the fish that we were butchering. The factories cannot keep up with slaughtering them. So we are going to the plants. And the second week I was like, oh, we do need to stock up a little bit. But shopping for it is not as hard as we think. Me personally, and Danielle, you can talk about how you do shopping because your family is bigger than mine. We have 3 people, it's 2 adults and a child. I usually go first place when we get to the grocery store is the produce section. And I go crazy every week with all the colors of the rainbows, not in one setting. Weekly, I'll rotate. So if week number 1, I got kale, next week I'll get chard. If I got chard, then I might get radish green. So I get radishes, I eat the bottoms and I blend the tops in a smoothie. And then I love to have staples. For me, staples are grains and root vegetables, and I do like legumes. So some of the things that I always have in my pantry is brown rice, some kind of wild rice, barley. I don't have to be gluten-free, so I can have that. Then quinoa is a big one. Then I like to get lentils. I like to get peas. I get them in different colors because I like fun colors. And I think, Danielle, when you said that we need to ask how and why we eat. But for me, food also comes through being visually stimulated. So I like colorful food. And so I don't like cooking my food for that reason. I really like to see different colors in my food. So I go through that. Then I have different varieties of beans. By the way, if you don't have a soy allergy, soybeans are a great source of nutrients right now because they're high in fat, good fat, and they're high in protein and they're high in carbs. It's a beautiful combination. So if your stomach can take it, highly recommend them. And then after that, and only after my cart is filled with this stuff, I go to can buy pasta, and I usually combine gluten-free and non-gluten-free. Again, I don't have to be gluten-free, so I can. And processed foods are almost next to non-existent in our cupboards in our fridge right now because it's just so much easier to do without. Usually processed foods have additives in them, or they're sitting in some kind of can that is lined with plastic. So again, if you don't want to cook your beans, yes, buy something in a can, that's fine, but it is not as great as buying dried beans, soaking them, cooking them. It's cheaper, it lasts you longer, and then you can freeze them for later. So for me, I do it that way. Some people have learned to shop online. So right now, Whole Foods in HEB here locally, and Fred Meyer that I've seen in the Northwest, they have where you can go online and place your order. They pack it up for you, and some stores even deliver. Whole Foods has to where within an hour to 2 hours, they deliver it to your door, and then some of it done through Amazon. So for some of you, it can be that easy. Some of you, if you have a community supported farming, so CSA, community supported agriculture, you can become a part of that. So I think it's called csa.org, the website used to be. You can find a local farmer, and right now the local people, they need to be supported. So you can go online to even local farming website and place an order with them. They are going to be getting money from you. They'll be providing service, and they can drop it off at your front door, and you can keep your 6 feet distance just fine. That's how I do my stuff. And then when it comes to cooking, I'll give you some tips after Danielle shares her tips because her family is double the size of mine.
Yeah, so we have 3 little ones, and they're very hungry. I feel like my youngest is hungry every hour and a half. So it's really important to be able to shop with variety in mind and thinking about, everything that Elena said. Getting produce, having a good variety of produce, using it in different ways is really important. But also, one thing that I find helpful is when you get home with the food, make sure that you know how to store it properly. Some things you can chop up and prepare, some things you can freeze. A friend of mine taught me a little trick. When you put food in a freezer bag, you can use a straw and suck out the extra air and put it in the freezer, and it will help to preserve it for a longer period of time without getting freezer burn. So there are different things that you can do to store it, but I definitely use online shopping. But these days, my husband is heading to the store and buying all of our food and bringing it back. But lots of beans, lots of grains, things that will last for a while. There are beans available in cartons and not cans that are already prepared, that are pretty clean. I usually rinse those first before I cook them. And then I'll add water and bay leaves and, salt and pepper and things like that. So if you bulk cook on a weekend and you have several different things to eat, you won't get bored with the same exact food all the time. So I also go to local grocery stores that are smaller, family-based grocery stores. There's one pretty close by, and they buy from local farmers and everything is organic. And so I always call them first. I want to support them, but I also want to get clean food. So I'll call them and say, when's your next order coming in? What day should I come? I'll tell them what I want and drive up and pick it up. So, look at your resources, look at your local farmers, look at your mom and pop grocery stores where you can, find organic if you can. If not, it's not the end of the world. Find it if you can, but get a good variety of foods in those categories that we mentioned, and then have some fun with it. Look at some recipes. You don't have to go and buy expensive cookbooks. Look online for some recipes that are fun, that look flavorful, that you can experiment with your family. Everyone's home now, right? So most people are home. So spend some time cooking with your family and coming up with new ideas and see how that benefits you. See if you can turn this into an exciting, positive thing versus something that is limiting. So that's what we do from a grocery standpoint, and just the variety and the planning and the different ways to prepare the food and the mindset all make the biggest difference for us.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off of what you said, which I didn't even think about until you mentioned it. I thought about it before, but today, buying local is actually advantageous because if we buy organic and it's transported from all over the world, we have to count on the fumes that are getting into that food when they're being transported. So again, if that's what we have, that's what we buy. And then, we do our best and everybody handles the detox process. But buying local will actually save on a lot of the emissions of the gas emissions, first of all. Second of all, it's not going to get into your produce. The local community is supported. So many benefits to that, and they're more ripe. So if you buy local tomatoes, they're basically from farm to your table, as opposed to they're coming here from Mexico and they're green and they're going to put in a gas chamber gas and they turn red, but they're still crunchy. So there are a lot of things that go hand in hand. So we have locally natural grocers. We go there first. That's where I buy produce. They only sell organic. And after we go, okay, we are out of options, then we go to Whole Foods or HEB, whatever is there. But like you said, Danielle, we do like organic because it's less chemicals in our bodies. But if your budget is not permitting it, or it's just maybe you're in a small podunk town somewhere where they don't have as many options, listen, produce, even if it's not organic, is still much better than junk food or a lot of animal food. So you still win. If I had to pick over a non-organic green smoothie and a Gatorade, non-organic green smoothie is going to win every single day. So there is no comparison in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that, you touched on something. I was not going to cover it, but since you brought it in, let's give it as a bonus. How do we cook? The recipes, yes, you can find a lot of them. I actually have an old website, it's Vegalicious, vega-licious.com. There are lots of recipes there. There are recipes everywhere, cookbooks, whatever. But here's how we like to prep food so it doesn't feel overwhelming. Right now, when you're at home, you have the time, right? But when you're going to go back to work, this is really going to help you save a lot of time. Is I bulk prep the grains and the beans, because once they are cooked and they're cooled off, they can be easily refrigerated and frozen. That means right now I have at least 2 huge bags of beans in there. And if I want and I feel like beans tomorrow, overnight I just pop it out, put it in the refrigerator. When I wake up in the morning, they're defrosted and I can just cook them in something or put them in hot water. Same goes for rice. So I usually have some frozen fruit on hand. By the way, frozen sometimes is more ripe, especially off season, because it's picked in its peak. Most of the times it's the things that people don't want to throw away. So they freeze them, they sell them to us. Fantastic for us. It saves money, it saves space. So frozen fruit. If you buy too many apples, for example, you can clean them out, cut out the hearts. You can freeze them too. You can dehydrate them. But for me, I have some frozen fruit. Always I buy herbs in bulk. I'll chop them up. I'll freeze them. I will pre-cook some grains and beans. I always have them in my freezer. And then I make big pots. Like I made a lentil soup last night. It's going to last me 3 days. So imagine for 3 days, I don't have to make a main dish. And yes, we eat and repeat. So what? If you like variety, just make more variety. But then we always have a salad that's chopped up and either a smoothie, and we always have a fruit, always with every meal at the end. That's our dessert. We do fruit. Even our dog likes fruit. He will ask for apples or mangoes. We feed him sometimes. Even animals like that. So like I said, we're animals, we love it. But cooking is easy. Don't overthink it. You don't need 5 courses. I always tell my child, I'm not a cafeteria lady. I'm your mother. So we have the main course, the salad, and for dessert, we have either a green smoothie or we'll have fruit. And that's it. We don't really need that much to survive on. Now, one of the things I actually like not doing is don't make too much food, too much variety, because our taste buds will always go, I want this and more of this. And before you know, you're going to overeat, because if you eat a little bit of 5 different dishes, you're going to want to go for seconds and thirds. So for me, actually keeping it simple is really a key ingredient. So one main dish, always a salad, and always a fruit.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
I just had one thing you brought up in my mind is it's about taste buds. So if you're someone who doesn't like vegetables a whole lot and you say, well, this may not work for me because I don't like most vegetables. I only like green beans, or I only like romaine lettuce. One thing that I want you to understand is that taste buds are not something you're born with. They're things that develop over time based on what you're exposed to. So when you're used to eating a certain type of diet, your taste buds crave certain types of food. When you make a decision to change your diet and eat foods that don't have sugar and don't have additives, there's a period of adaptation where things may not be as exciting to you as some of the old foods, but as you adapt to that new, lifestyle, your taste buds will change. There are people now I talk to who love vegetables now, but they didn't love them before. They didn't grow up eating them. So don't be scared if you're not a big vegetable person right now. If you are courageous enough to take the steps for the betterment of your health and your family's health, that will come later.
Amen to that. When I married my husband, he was averse to a lot of vegetables. You would not find him eating tomatoes or mushrooms, and right now he loves them. We lived in Florida, and tomatoes were in season, and I was driving home. I was working in banking, and I saw this farmer on the side of the road, and I see the most beautiful tomatoes, and I'm a tomato lover. Like, this is, I could do tomatoes if my body just allowed me to have them all the time, I would. And I pulled over, and they were so aromatic and they were so delicious and sweet. And I bought up different varieties that he had. I got home and I think I made 6 different dishes, different ways with tomatoes. And he got hooked. It just sometimes trying it at the right time in the right combination in the right dish. And then for the longest time, he wouldn't do mushrooms. So we made vegan meatballs, which was made basically out of grains and mushrooms combined. The guy couldn't stop eating them. And then we were quiet. I was my niece and I, and we didn't say anything until he asked for the second and the third. And we're like, well, do you know that you're eating mushrooms? Sometimes it's a mental block because you presuppose something, or because somebody forced you to eat stuff, like he was forced by his parents. And you say, I don't love it, but if you give it a chance, you will always learn to like it. So with that said, this is going to wrap it up for us. We're going to open the floor for questions right now. I see one that popped up. If you have any, type them out furiously, because we're going to wrap up in 2 minutes. But Stephanie wanted to know, she said, how long after I go gluten-free is an average time before I can eat gluten, or is it a done deal? What a fantastic questions. And I always say, well, we need to be working together first. I'm going to give you general guidelines. Generally speaking, if you have celiac, it's a done deal. You are not going to gluten. Now, I actually have seen and met people who were able to reverse it. So on the miraculous side of things, where I believe that anything is possible, I think there might be something like that, but it needs to be your spirit, soul, and body that agree with it. You cannot be like, I shouldn't be eating gluten, but I really want to eat. You're going to be working against yourself. But one of my friends was celiac, believe it or not. But one of the things that she discovered in herself, that it eventually became a status thing for her. She had a restaurant that was gluten-free, and she was known in her community as being gluten-free. But eventually she was like, I don't really want to be gluten-free. Can I heal from that? For her, she got free from that. But if you have celiac disease, normally it's a done deal. Same goes for a lot of autoimmune conditions. And again, I say for a lot, not for all, because we have seen it go both ways. I've seen women who have had autoimmune conditions, but after they clean out their diet and allow their body to repair itself and give it some time, in a year or so, they're able to come back and say, hey, let's test it out. And I always say, start in small portions frequently. If you do well, you're okay. And do it in rotation. One of the things we've also noticed is when our clients consume locally grown grains, so American grains versus European grains, there was a difference, because there's a lot of genetic modifications, a lot of spraying going on in America of crops, which is not allowed on the same scale overseas. So we see that people don't react the same way to gluten when they eat gluten from other countries. So it's something to be mindful of that. But this is exactly why when we work with our clients, we work one-on-one on a lot of this to uncover what is right for you. And there's not one big blanket statement that will say you will never X, Y, and Z. Generally speaking, if I came here from a medical standpoint, I would tell you, once you are gluten-free, and you have to be for medical reasons, you're gluten-free forever. However, experience-based, we have seen otherwise. But when we work with somebody, Stephanie, we work spirit, soul, and body type of deal. So we work on your psyche to uncover if there are any blocks. We work on your diet. We work on your gut. We work on releasing trauma. And with all of that, your body can go way beyond what modern medicine even knows right now. So I hope that answers that question. George, you have a question for us. You said, do you have a whole foods plant-based regimen that clears plaque buildup in corticoid artery as well as addresses low thyroid? The answer is absolutely. This is exactly what we use as a part of our protocol in the program. By the way, if you've never heard about our program, go to 360impacthealth.com And there's actually a little tab. It says program or it says services. Click on that. I describe it in detail there. But we have a specific dietary approach. So for example, when we were working with Danielle had an autoimmune and digestive condition, which we couldn't say, go eat plant-based and eat like Elena. She would have doubled over in pain and it would have been really, really bad. So we had to rebuild her system from scratch. So she was very diligent about what she ate, when she ate, how much she ate. For me, my path to my health was totally different. I tried being gluten-free. I tried to be gluten included, and I was okay either way. So I was like, okay, by experimentation, I knew that I didn't have to do that, but I had low thyroid. I was hypothyroid. And for me, it was dietary changes that I had to make in order to get better. So yes, we absolutely have a whole food plant-based regimen that allows people to do it. But George, to answer that question, we do layer it up with also seeing, is there a nutritional deficiency? Is there a vitamin deficiency in your body? Is there trauma? Is there possible genetic mutations? And that goes to also answer Stephanie's questions, because we see people with genetic mutations are usually not handling protein from gluten grains as well. So if there's a genetic mutation in BIB, it's a no. So based on that, but yes, we have that. Let me see if we have any other questions here before we log off. Danielle, do you have anything else to add while I'm doing this?
Well, I was just going to make a comment about gluten. And, I used to avoid gluten. I still avoid gluten now, but years ago, when I go and try to find a snack or food items that didn't have gluten, there were not a lot of options. We've evolved because there are so many people that are sensitive to gluten now. There are so many options. I think if someone has celiac or some sort of inflammatory condition, the first goal should be, how do I heal, right? And how do I stay satisfied? And how do I have food that will serve my body and my healing process? And what's my relationship with gluten? What does it do to me when I have to let it go, or when I make a decision to let it go? What is the anxiety associated with that? And we work with you through that process and allow you to have foods that you love that maybe don't have food or ingredients that don't support you, right? That are inflammatory. So we go through that process with a lot of tracking. I've never seen more tracking than what we do in 360. Every symptom, every food item is tracked specifically. There's a lot of troubleshooting that goes on, and it's an evolution, and it's a process that we work together on.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to really understand the relationship that we do have with food. So before we work with somebody, we put them through a process. You have to watch a training, you have to have a conversation with one of my coaches before getting to me, and then we have a conversation together. And one of the criteria we have is the only people that we work with is people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get healthy. The people who are coming into this process trying to negotiate how much can I get away with and still be healthy, it's usually not the right approach. We usually go, what can I do in order to be healthy? And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I spoke with a woman 4 years ago. She said, listen, if you tell me to eat cardboards and stand on my head while doing it, I will do it because I'm just desperate to get well. Well, I've never asked people to do that. Our approach is, what does it take for me to get well and stay well, but not, ooh, what can I get away with because I love so much? So we separate really. We understand the relationship with food. Why is it that you attach to certain foods so much that you're unwilling to let go? And if you're willing, I just graduated a client when she came into the program, she was eating paleo diet. And I was like, fingernail by fingernail, I was like, can we let it go? Are you ready for this one? So it's a mental process for a lot of you, just like it is a mental process for a lot of people who take a lot of supplements. But those are the truths and the things that you need to answer for yourself. For us right now, our goal was to really show you the diets not to consume. And I agree with Danielle. I don't like the word diets because people think about dieting, but the meals, that the kind of food sources that you should not consume, the food sources that you should consume that are anti-inflammatory and that are immunoboosting. And we also talked about giving you tips on how to shop and cook for your family. And this is as much as we can fit into this hour. We are grateful that you tuned in, and we're grateful that you're paying attention to the things that you can do, as opposed to going out and freaking out. Oh my God, how many more new cases did we have? How many more new deaths did we have? We're focusing on things that we have control over, and our mindset and our dietary sources we have control over. Tomorrow when we go live at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time, which is 8 in the morning Pacific and 11 Eastern Standard Time, we're going to dive into rest and sleep. A lot of you who have autoimmune conditions and hormone imbalances and thyroid conditions, you don't sleep well at night, or if you do, it's restless, or if you wake up and you slept a lot of hours, you are still tired. So tomorrow we're going to take a deep dive about the role that rest plays in our health, including our immune system. And then we're going to give you practical steps on getting more sleep, and with that, increasing your body's ability to withstand any virus, including coronavirus. This is Elaine and Danielle. We're signing off for today. We're wishing you a great rest of the day. We're going to talk to you tomorrow. And tomorrow when you come with questions, come prepared, and we'll see you then.